So basically, we had a fire in our house. And when that happened, we were very lost, even though I have a strong background in environmental science and my husband's strong background in environmental health and safety. We were very lost because when something happens to your house, close to your family, you're overwhelmed.
Welcome to the Jennifer J. Hammond Podcast. Jennifer is a licensed realtor, educator, speaker, and best-selling author. Jennifer's goal is to help you find your yay in every day.
Hello, it's Jennifer J. Hammond, and I got Adriana. Well, I'm so excited because you have a beautiful story. I love the fact we're both in white. So if you're watching this in the video, you should be watching if you're just listening. So you have a beautiful story on how you got into the business, and you really are helping people in such a profound way with real estate. But I want you to share your story. I don't want to give any of it away.
It sounds good. Well, thank you for having me. It's very exciting to share this with everybody. And it always gets to me, being able to share my story and how that kind of translates into what we do now, and kind of merging my passion into what happened to us, and then now helping others to kind of navigate and kind of be successful in the other side. So basically, we had a fire in our house. And when that happened, we were very lost, even though I have a strong background in environmental science and my husband's strong background in environmental health and safety. We were very lost because when something happens to your house, close to your family, you're overwhelmed. And you're just looking for answers. And in these cases, sadly, in the industry, there's just not the right guidance. People are all with their agenda. Their insurance agents, they will guide you to things that they will pay less to you. And then the adjusters are right there pushing, and then vendors are knocking on your door as you're just trying to kind of pull the pieces together and move forward. So for us, it was very challenging. Still talking to firefighters and vendors knocking on the door, like, sign this, sign that. And you're just like, oh my God, I don't even have the right information. It's just all at once hitting you. You're going to a tragic event and you have to make decisions quick. Because that's the thing with restoration. Time is of essence. You have to act. So when it's a fire or water, you have to act upon it, because otherwise there's going to be secondary damage and then more to pay. So for us, it was just like a struggle finding honest vendors at the beginning, going through different vendors. We were 3 weeks into the process and we were just lost. So we finally find PuroClean, and they came in, and by no means pushy, which was refreshing for us. They would sit down with us, understand what happened, explain to us a process that was going to happen to our house, to our belongings, all the things that we were not going to be able to have access to in the next couple months. At the beginning, you think it's only a couple of days, and you think it's weeks, and then it turns into months. For us, it was 92 days in a hotel with a 10-year-old. So it was quite an adventure, but it helped us learn a lot. And then at the end of the process, we were so satisfied with PuroClean that we were like, we're going to get a franchise and we're going to help others go through this. Make it easier. Make sure that we're there along the way. We know how it feels. We know what you need. So we'll be able to just, with all the knowledge that we have as experiencing this ourselves, and also all the training that we got through corporate, we're going to be able to help them in this difficult time and make it something positive at the end of the day.
And let's talk a little bit about that as well, because, everybody around you, you talked about all these people who are looking you to sign something, and they're looking, I hate to say it, it's like they have their hand out. They're just looking for money, 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 money. And that, again, the clock is ticking, but there's the emotional side of it. There's the money side of it. There are all these other things. And so I am curious on, what kind of advice would you give to a homeowner that's going through it? Or even, like myself as a licensed real estate agent, where a lot of times we are looked at to do something and to give advice on, go this way or that direction. What advice would you give to know when somebody's, I want to say their heart is in the right place, but again, they're not giving you false information or just trying to get money? How do you choose? How do you determine?
First of all, make sure they're licensed to do so, that they're certified. They have all the the documentations to do fire restoration, water damage, mold restoration. These are all different certifications that you get through the institute, the IRCRC. And people that are in this industry should be certified through this institute to be able to perform the job professionally and correctly. A second thing will be options. Get 2 or 3 bids, get options, hear different people in the industry, compare with other companies, see different estimates, and see, what kind of runs in through the average and what is just completely out of the way. And this will give you a little bit of guidance. And don't be afraid to call experts, call home inspectors. Use the resources around you and look for companies that are willing to give you these pieces of information so that you can make the best informed decision, because that's vital. Get all the pieces of information. Don't rush into just because you're so overwhelmed, you want to make a decision, but rushing into it might be a very big mistake.
Exactly. And it's interesting because you and I are sitting here and I'm going to date this. We're going to, this is, with the podcast, they last forever. But
Yes.
Today we're actually sitting here in the Tampa, Florida, Clearwater, St. Pete area. And we just had a hurricane go through. So talk about timely. I'm so glad we're getting this interview now because you're about to be super busy. Unfortunately, because there was so much flooding all around. I mean, the images on the television right now have been incredible with all the flooding. And so let's start right. You do a couple services from mold remediation, mold stuff, but also flooding. Those two, I'm going to say, are going to be so important right now, right after this hurricane and all the destruction that's happened. What would you say to someone who is, again, having to face this and they're trying to figure it out? Because as you just said, there's a timeline, there's a clock on this.
Yes. Yeah, especially here in Florida. Mold is vicious. We don't want mold in our homes. And sadly, with these type of temperatures, I mean, you can just go outside right after the hurricane and it's just so super humid. So
Yeah.
you know that these homes don't have power in some instances. So they're going to be out of power for a while. Therefore, all these bacteria are growing and brewing and trying to have their party. So that's the main thing, to make sure that you get contractors in to at least do demolition. Get all those materials that are affected, carpet, drywall, get it out. If you're not going to do the restoration at the time, because vendors are going to be super busy, that they're not going to be able to get to you right away, but at least get the demolition part done so there's no of that damaged material lingering there with all the moisture affecting your house and creating more microbial growth and things that will just put you in a different scenario that we really don't want to get that, because we know that water damage resulting into a mold remediation is completely different pricing.
Right. I was going to say, and that's one of the things that my point I wanted to make sure that we are letting people know is that, water damage is destructive enough. And we could do entire shows just about the water damage, especially right after a hurricane. But now also when water turns into mold damage, again, part of it is I think it's so emotional and it takes a huge confront to come back, especially to your home, to your business, and see the water damage, because it's almost overwhelming in some respects. And then people will take a breath because they're like, okay, now I need to find a contractor and everybody's busy and blah, blah. And then there's the mold. And the mold is also something that, again, we could do an entire show just on the mold. One thing you talked about ripping out all the other stuff out of there. Is there, one, I want to say misconception or potential misconception. People often think, okay, well, if there's potential mold, all I got to do is get some bleach and I could just spray some bleach around and that's going to solve everything, or at least save them thousands of dollars. What would you say to that?
Say no. Get a mold assessment. As soon as you identify microbial growth in your home, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's black mold, but just for somebody to make this call, it has to be tested in a lab. So for everybody, please don't believe anybody that just walk into your home and immediately said, you have mold problems. No, you might have microbial growth, but to confirm that it's a mold, you have to have lab testing done. You have to have a professional mold assessor come and do this testing so they can confirm what type of mold and how to remediate it.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Because it's also, that's the other big thing is that people come in and immediately, if they smell something bad, well, I hate to say it could be rotted food that was trapped somewhere. It could be a lot of things. So don't just automatically, I don't want to say, don't give in to all your fears because you think it's the worst. It might not be the worst. It might be, but let's go ahead and again, make sure you do the proper procedure and you get it tested.
Exactly. And also there's some handymen that will come and try to restore. They're not mold remediators. These are just handymen. There's a very limited scope of work that they can do. So make sure that if you have some microbial growth, look for a mold remediation company. This company will guide you into getting a proper assessment and how to remediate it properly. A handyman cannot perform a mold assessment. They can rip your drywall or bleach it, but it will come back.
And that's so important. That's the reason I wanted to talk about some of the, I mean, we could do an entire show on just mold myths, the myths of mold and mold remediation, because so many people have the wrong impression there. But I want to go ahead and in this particular episode, I wanted to make sure that we talk about with your particular company, we talked about water damage and water damage restoration, and then mold, and gosh, the importance of understanding whether it is mold or what other kind of, I want to say in that realm it could be, but because you get it tested in a lab. But now let's go to the one that affected you, the fire and smoke damage, and what does that restoration look like?
Yeah, that's something very vital for everybody to know. I didn't even have this information before it happened to me. I thought it was gonna be call a cleaning company and they will come and fix it all up and then throw some Febreze and you're good to go. But it doesn't happen like that. Just that smoke odor, even if somebody comes and cleans your house, might be good for a couple of days. But give it a week, you're going to have all these again, and all your items are going to be little by little consuming itself because of all the acid that the soot has. So all this soot has to be removed, walls have to be scrubbed, and all the items, textiles have to be properly restored by a fire restoration company. This is another instance that is out there. A cleaning company cannot properly do a fire restoration. It has to be a fire restoration company, professionals that have special chemicals, and they can remove all that soot from your home, all the smoke odor, place air movers and filtration systems so that any particles that are there toxic that can potentially make you sick are out of your home before you come back.
And that's something that I think is so important. I unfortunately have a couple sad stories about friends. One was actually a real estate agent in Washington, D.C. One's down in Tampa. It was her dad. And it was because of, and it was different for each one, but you talk about those particles. And so often I want to call them the unseen or the silent or the invisible killers, because they are so dangerous. And unfortunately, it's so important to really understand. They need to understand what that's going to look like and what that could be, because again, like you said, until I had the fire in your own house, you didn't realize what that would be. And so I can't even, if you're listening to this, make sure if you know anybody or if it's happened to you, just make sure you don't just automatically think that, again, you could spray a little bleach or whatever, a little Febreze and you're good to go, because again, that's really not safe. And those silent killers, even the ones that you can't smell, I think about, to use an example of like the gas that you can't smell. I mean, there are things that really can harm you, and you should do the proper test to make sure that you're safe.
Yeah, as well as the chemicals where they're performing these cleanings, chemical cleaning. Some companies use very harsh chemicals. If you have babies, pets, or people with a very weak immune system, that can really affect more than help. So we use all plant-based chemicals too, so they're friendly. And, we make sure that we're coming to your house and we're not going to make you sicker than you are.
Then
that's very important.
Yeah, I was going to say, thank you for bringing that up, because that's so important. And people, again, overlook that part of it as well. It's really critical. So, and so I'm going to take you through to the last segment, which of course, people watch so much TV, CSI, they're thinking about crime scene cleanup. Now, we've talked about it before, in haunted houses, or I hate to say a house where a crime happened, God forbid it's a murder or something, but when there is a crime and there is all of the things that need to be cleaned up, they need to be cleaned up properly. So that's one of the services you guys do, right?
Yes, we do biohazard cleanups. This can be anything from hoarding situations to crime scenes or trauma, can be unattended death. So here in Florida, we have like a big population of people that come here to spend their time half the year. A lot of them don't have family nearby, and sometimes it happens that they're in their home, nobody notices, and weeks will go by and the person has been dead in their home, and they just have to come into the whole biohazard, because at that point, the whole body has been decomposing for this time, and it's just not right to just send a regular cleaning company. Another myth: biohazard cleanup cannot be done by your cleaning regular service. It has to be a biohazard company, because there can be something infectious. You don't want to put your people, their technicians or anybody in harm's way, or people that are next in line. If you're renting a place, if you have a short-term rental and something happened, make sure to call a company that has a biohazard cleanup, because you don't want to put your customers in danger or anybody afterwards, and then you're going to be liable for that issue.
And one thing, your company, PuroClean, it's funny, you also have the procedures, and, we've said it a little bit lightheartedly, but you also have procedures in place, so that someone just can't call you and say, oh, well, we had a dead body here. You make sure you're talking with the police and you're following procedures, right?
Yes, you always have to make sure to check your paperwork, because, at the end of the day, you are removing something that can be evidence. And you have to check all these things before you can start performing any biohazard cleanup. Make sure that there's a police report or the necessary documentation that shows that this was indeed an accident or something that was an event that was already recorded by the authorities. So then you can proceed and clean up the premises. Otherwise, it can be a big issue if police are trying to get some pieces to the puzzle and everything is already clean.
Yeah, and also I wanted to mention, we're kind of been focused on residential homes, but you also work on commercial properties, even like office space, right?
Office space, hotels. We have a couple hotels that have had biohazard cleanups. Things happen. Like we always say, accidents are not just like, some event that happened in certain areas. People unfortunately died everywhere, in homes and in businesses. So yes, we have commercial and residential response in all of the different spectrums, from the fire to the biohazard. We're able to attend residential and commercial.
And I think it's important for people to just realize that when they're looking at any kind of real estate, that you want to make sure that it's clean and there are procedures. And again, it's not just a simple spraying of some bleach and some air fresheners. It's funny. I even when I go in a house, if I smell an enormous amount of air fresheners, I'm always like, okay, something suspicious here. What are they trying to cover up? Because it should be like a clean smell, not like just an enormous amount of air fresheners in there.
Yeah, there's something that is happening. There's something is brewing there.
Well, and I'll give you another example. One of the other things that I've come across myself, and it was funny because, with pets, so often people become, they no longer smell. We call it blind. They become like their noses, it can't smell their cat or it can't smell their dog. And I had one of them where it was a cat, and they kept the cat ironically in the basement. And I say ironically because they felt like, well, then only the basement's going to smell bad, and there was no carpet. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was like eyes watering to go down to the basement. And we try, and again, this is part of how I learned, because I was pretty young in real estate. This is 20 odd years ago, and learning, we tried all sorts of things. And until we got an actual certified real company to come in and handle it, that smell didn't go away. And unfortunately, because it was my listing, it just became nicknamed the cat house. It's almost like if there had been a murder there, it would have been the murder house. Nobody wanted anything to do with it. So I think that one of the things is to become knowledgeable and to make sure you understand the ins and outs of it before you
commit into some, especially for realtors, like you're there and you are the expert for these people, these customers. Some of them are coming from out of state. They're not used to mold, as other places of the country don't have these issues. So when they come to Florida, they're trusting you, and whatever you're telling them, they go with that. And Sometimes if people say like, oh, it's fine, you just have mold, then you just have to bleach it and come in the house. And then people come in the house 2 weeks after, we turn in an invoice to them for $30,000, and that's not fun.
Exactly. And I was just about to say, one of the things that's interesting as well, you mentioned this last time, and I wanted you to talk about it, especially for people who have short-term rentals. Sometimes, you know, again, in the state of Florida, that I found it hilarious how short-term rental is defined differently depending on where you are. So sometimes it's like a hotel, it's like a daily short-term rental. Sometimes it's like a 3-month rental, or other times it could be a 6-month rental, and that's considered short-term. Now, I say that because we have people who are, we call them snowbirds, and they go back to the snowy north, and then they then decide that they're either going to turn off their air conditioning, or they're going to turn it down, or, you know, up so high that mold grows while they're out of town. So talk a little bit about this, I want to say, misconception of thinking, well, I'm just going to save on my electricity and turn the utilities off while I'm out of town.
Yeah, I mean, the air conditioner, our homes are built, you know, the AC is installed into your home not only to keep you comfortable, but to keep the structure in place, you know, and sound, safe and sound. So if you start turning your AC super high and then it's not running only like once a day, you're gonna start having high levels of humidity, especially right now, you know, in the summer. You know, the first part of the year is just when we have those levels of humidity. So if your house has more than 60% in humidity, you're already brewing stuff in different places. So yes, AC is not only to keep you comfortable, but it's to keep your house safe. So if you want to avoid any of these issues with mold, you need to always try to maintain the humidity in your home. And if you're a snowbird, try to keep your unit checked by somebody, because especially now my heart goes out to all the snowbirds, because some of them are coming, you know, they're not coming until next month. Unfortunately, some of them, they don't have people that will look at their properties. And once they come back, if they had some flooding, that's going to be super sad. I mean, we're still dealing with some mold issues from last year's hurricane. Just for people to have a perspective on how things work. Because some people don't come to their homes until 4 months after. And then imagine they call their insurance and all these now is on you because you didn't attend it on time. You had water damage, but you were not present. So unfortunately, that claim is going to take a little bit to settle.
Well, and let's talk about that really quick. We're just about out of time, but the last thing I want to say is, so describe for people, because this is what I think the other big misconception is, people think that it takes a really long time for mold to grow.
Not at all. I mean, on the perfect conditions in a lab is within 24 hours, but in our home, yes. I mean, that's in a lab, you know, Petri dish and everything. So, but in our home, it can take a few weeks and then you start brewing things. So it's not good. Even if you have a small leak, that can cause extreme damage in your home. So if you have something that you've been wanting to do, try to fix it before it leads you into a very big expense in your home, because these moisture issues are no joke. And I always recommend people, if you had issues with your roofing and you already replaced your roof, make sure you get a moisture assessment. That way you know that not only your roof is fine, but the interior of your home is good to go. And there's nothing lingering that can cause any additional damage to your property. Yeah,
and I was going to say it's important because I think so often people, they don't realize how fast it can happen and then at what temperature. So anyway, I want people to call you and find out more. So how do they get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
Yeah, they can call our office to 727-291-8988.
And your website?
And then the website, PuroClean.com, PuroClean of Pinellas Park. There's 400 of us around the country. So you just have to click for PuroClean of Pinellas Park.
Perfect. Well, and as you know, I'm always looking for the silver lining and everything. And so I'm going to ask you to raise your voice and say yes, yay with me. Yay! So 3, 2, 1. Yes! Thank you so much.